Alright, here we are with the next video, part 4 in the jet versus or thrust versus series. We're going to be talking about hill climbs. Alright, hill climbs with four-wheel drive cars versus four-wheel drive cars with thrust and thrust-powered cars only. So basically, this is really pretty simple for this part here. Your four-wheel drive car or truck will fail past a 55-degree slope, no matter what your tires are, no matter how low your center of gravity is. That's pretty much it with regular tires without using any kind of adhesive or something else until a future technology is invented for tires and grip or something like that. That gets to fail pretty much. The EDF only car is well, let's talk about the four-wheel drive car plus the EDF car. It can go vertical, but it has more weight than the EDF only car. And the EDF only car can go vertical the fastest if it has enough thrust to lift itself the fastest. So that's pretty much that for that part. And next is pretty much comparing as the angle inclines, what's going to happen. Alright, so here's where it gets a little more interesting and a little more complicated. So here on the very simple, like a 2-degree slope, it's kind of hard to say which is going to come out in the lead. It's obvious if our slope, again, was approaching vertical or going vertical, then it's obvious which cars would be in the lead. The EDF only and four-wheel drive plus thrust, because they're the only ones who can go vertical. But besides that, on a very slight incline, it's hard to say if your thrust, four-wheel drive plus thrust would be in the lead here, or if your EDF only would be in second, and if your four-wheel drive would be in last, or actually your four-wheel drive might be in front and your thrust might be in second. Or I'm kind of unsure exactly. I think it would depend on power to weight, how much thrust you have, how much wind resistance you're going, so what mile per hour you're going at which point in the race. There's all these factors that basically mean these things need to be tested. And all I can tell you is it's gonna be close, like a quarter-mile drag strip, top fuel dragster versus a jet dragster is close versus my car on pavement versus a beasted out normal RC dragster. It's gonna be close. Cars are fast. Different propulsion methods work. Wheels get a lot of traction, but thrust works when your wheels begin to fail. So kind of with that in mind, on a 2-degree slope, I'm going to imagine all the cars have so much wheel power, except for the EDF only car, that the wheels are losing traction and they can't put down all the power because they're going to start peeling out, or they're going to wheelie and flip over and lose the race. So what's going to happen at that point, I would just have to say EDF plus four-wheel drive car. For the first place. And second would have to be a toss-up. And this would be simply determined on your four-wheel drive car has so much power, but at this point it's peeling out, or it's beginning to wheelie. So that's the maximum accelerational speed that it has at that point, going up that incline. Well, if this has enough thrust to match it up that incline, they're going to be exactly tied. If this has more thrust to get a higher speed up the incline, then it's going to be in the lead. If it had less, it would be behind. It's just that simple. So it's just like, well, with how much money you can throw into these cars and what's going to be reliable and fuel economy and efficiency and run times, is probably going to drive people to pick one more than the other in these kind of situations. If it's a lot cheaper to do this, people will do what's cheaper. So here we are with the finishing portion of the hill climb video, and this whole section is pretty simple, but this is the part that's a little more complex. So tell me what you guys think. So we already know that the EDF only car is the only one, or not the only one, but it can go vertical the fastest, okay, because it's the lightest and it has thrust, which does work going vertical and in the air, okay, but it's more of a question when you're talking about a slight 2-degree incline or a 2-degree slope. And my line isn't perfect there. Let's imagine it's like a real life grassy hill where there's some bumps and imperfections. But yeah, in a 2-degree slope or a slight slant, the only thing I really can say is I believe the 4-wheel drive plus EDF car will be in first place on a slight slant. Now, of course, when we slant up to getting close to vertical and above 55 degrees, EDF only car will always take the lead. But in this scenario, I believe the bite of the 4-wheel drive system and the thrust will take you up the hill the fastest. But we have to get some factors laid out, like what are the situations, what are the specs going on here. So basically, in the 4-wheel drive only car and the 4-wheel drive plus thrust car, we have 1,000 horsepower, right? And we're assuming that the tires and the surface they're running on, their 1,000 horsepower getting put to the 4-wheel drive system is being maxed out. That means they're either peeling out on this dirt incline or grassy incline, peeling out so they can't use all that 1,000 horsepower, or if they punch the throttle anymore, they're going to do a wheelie and flip over. So they're both maxed out using their wheel acceleration. Okay, so essentially the 4-wheel drive plus EDF car would be tied right here with the 4-wheel drive car, except it has thrust. And so the plus thrust factor means as the tires are failing to accelerate you any faster, its thrust would push it faster. Why I'm putting it in first place. So this car here, the 4-wheel drive car, is maxed out. It can't go any faster here. It's just peeling out or gonna wheelie. And so why would the EDF only car be like tied with it? I'm not trying to say the EDF only car is flying over the 4-wheel drive car coming up the hill, even though it could maybe. I'm just saying with this, I'm saying it has enough thrust to match the accelerational speed of this car at this point. So the 1,000 horsepower, the weight of the car, how much traction it's getting is making it accelerate at a certain speed up a 2-degree slope. And this EDF only car simply has enough thrust to push its weight, that same speed, up that same incline. If it had more thrust, it would be ahead. If it had less thrust, it would be behind. Right? So, and the last little adding on fact is wheel power and torque are much more efficient, are much better below a 55-degree slope. So it's basically saying you would need a lot of thrust to match 1,000 horsepower on such a slight incline. All right, on a much steeper incline, and as you pass 55 degrees, doesn't matter how much horsepower you'd have, you wouldn't go past 55 degrees. So you wouldn't need as much thrust to try to catch up. And so, like example, on a flat surface, this is why the wheel-driven car is ahead, and why even with ridiculous 10,000 pound thrust jet, you're still not going to keep up with the 6,000 horsepower dragster. All right, so trying to keep it short. So that's the hill climb video. Next, I think we're going to try to tackle thrust vectoring and then skill level needed to drive all these things in these different scenarios, whether you're jumping them, sliding them around corners, trying to drift, trying to be the fastest. A typical RC driver, when he steps into the ring, what car should he get to try to be the fastest around different types of tracks and said things. So that's this video. Peace. And then skill level needed to drive all these things. Skill level needed to drive all these things.